Hello Raptors fans, welcome back to Raptors Report. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the NBA Draft, and we'll be doing it in a very interesting new format. I'll also be letting everyone in on some personal news that might explain the lack of uploads recently. Let's jump right in. First of all, let's start with the personal news, because it will kind of explain what's happening and give a background on the cool new format for this week's episode. For people who follow me on Twitter, this will be old news, but for those of you who don't, I've recently become a father for the second time. My wife went into labor and delivered our second child on July the 10th, and everyone is happy and healthy, if a bit tired. So if you're wondering why I haven't been creating content for the past few weeks, that's the reason. It also explains the format for this episode. My mother is in town to visit us and help take care of our first child, which means it's time to make some content. Here's the problem though. Making content right before the draft means that whatever content I do make, it's going to become obsolete in a matter of days. So what to do? Well, I've devised a way for me to make accurate content no matter what happens come July 29th. I'll do that by creating a chapter of this video for every conceivable outcome, and then you can either watch all the way through, or if you're from the future, skip to the part that actually happens. Obviously, there is potential that none of the things I talk about actually transpire, but what are the chances of that happening? Very slim, I'm sure. This definitely won't blow up in my face. So from this point forward, you can either browse the different chapters by clicking in the description or navigating to it via the red YouTube progress bar, or just watch the rest of the video the way through. At the end of every chapter, I'll give a percentage-based evaluation to show how likely I think it will be that the discussed scenario happens. So, let's do this. Cade Cunningham. The Raptors have traded up to acquire Cade Cunningham. Holy crap! Who could have seen this coming? While obviously the cost to acquire the first overall pick was high, Cade Cunningham has immense potential to become one of the best players in the NBA. This is a star-driven league, and even if the Raptors had to give up, they've made a gamble to acquire a potential generational talent. I knew these Cade Raptors jersey photoshops I made earlier in the season weren't for nothing. Welcome to T.Cade. I'm not going to devote an immense amount of time to this chapter because I believe that the chance that this happens is less than 1%. With that said, I would definitely be very excited and hopeful for the next chapter of Raptors basketball. Let's cover all those bases. Evan Mobley. If you skip to this chapter, the Raptors have either moved up in the draft to grab him, or, thanks to the stars aligning, Mobley has fallen to their draft position at number 4. Man, Evan Mobley is a fantastic prospect. He's tall, fast, explosive, smart, plays winning basketball, and is tailor-made for the new NBA, which favors skilled bigs that can score and protect the basket. Not only do Mobley's advanced stats show that he makes a big impact, one of the most fascinating things about him is his ability to make high-level reads and find teammates for open looks, handle the ball and distribute and face-up drive to the basket. Two comparisons I've seen for Mobley that I like are Anthony Davis and Karl Anthony Towns. Both are agile bigs who you can run the offense through in the high post, or even from the three-point line, and two guys that can anchor the post on the other end, with Anthony Davis being an elite post protector and Towns rounding into a good defender there as well. Mobley's defensive instincts are excellent, and he can cover the perimeter as well with fast feet. He's a little on the skinny side, but as we've seen with other big guys over the years, thin frames tend to fill out, and this becomes less of an issue as time goes on. The fit with the Raptors would also be pretty great. The Raptors need a big, and while Mobley might not be all NBA to start his career, I don't see why he couldn't contribute to helping the Raptors win right away. Mobley was very cagey when asked about Toronto in his pre-draft interviews. He praised the Toronto Raptors organization for their development system, but followed it up with a very qualifying statement that wouldn't alienate other teams that could draft him. I think this speaks to his ability to navigate the complicated PR world of the NBA, while at the same time giving me the impression that he didn't think it was likely that the Raptors would be able to get him. A few weeks ago, I thought the chances that he would fall to number 4 or the ability for the Raptors to trade up to acquire him would be pretty low. But with all of the rumors flying around, I think that this one is actually within the realm of possibility. I would peg the chances of this happening at slightly less than 10%. Welcome to Toronto, big guy. Jalen Green? Whoa! Jalen Green is a big-time talent, and I think he's the third best prospect in the draft. The rumors pre-draft had Jalen Green rocketing up mock draft boards, with him falling no lower than number 3. The fact that the Raptors were able to snag him was a surprise, but in my opinion, a welcome one. Jalen Green has some serious skills. He's a high-flying, three-point shooting, ankle-breaking, scoring machine. He's what casual fans think of when they think about a basketball player. Scouts are impressed as well. He has perhaps the most desirable talent in the NBA, shot creation ability. Jalen Green, unlike anyone else in this draft, perhaps even more than Cade Cunningham, can create a shot opportunity for himself. Using advanced footwork, a high-level handle, and explosiveness, Jalen Green can create a ton of space with which to get a high-quality shot off. His bread and butter thus far in his career has been his three-point shooting off the dribble. This has big implications for any NBA team that acquires him. The ability to create and accurately shoot a three-point shot off the dribble gives NBA offenses a safety valve when plays break down, when you need a crunch time bucket, when every other option has been exhausted, or frankly, just as a reliable plan A that you can design the entire offense around. James Harden, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, Luka Doncic, Trae Young come to mind when you think of guys that can create a three-point shot off of the dribble, out of thin air, even when being covered by the league's best defenders. Green spent last season in the NBA G League, which in my opinion is closer to NBA basketball than college is. There he averaged an impressive 17 points per game on 61% true shooting percentage and 36.5% from 3. He was playing against adult men and looking like he belonged. The other elements of Jalen Green's game aren't quite as developed as his shooting off the dribble. Defense and getting other players on his team involved are things that he needs to get better at. But when you have a skill that is as important as Green's shot creation and shooting ability, that provides a very compelling base to build the other elements off of. Welcome to the 6. The money's not green up here, but I bet green will still mean cash money north of the border. So, in terms of likelihood, like Mobley, I think this has around a 10% chance of actually happening. Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs, I think, has been the pick that most Raptor fans have been preparing themselves for ever since they landed the number 4 pick in the draft. He's a big guard, he's strong and athletic, he has a fantastic motor, he's a winner, he's really reminding everyone of Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry, the indisputable GOAT, has been the Raptors' starting point guard for almost a decade, and if it's time to hand the reins over to anyone, Jalen Suggs is about as natural a guy to fill Lowry's shoes as you could hope for. While Suggs has been a top-rated prospect for a while now, he rose to prominence due to Gonzaga's ridiculous college season, where they lost only a single game, which was unfortunately the one right at the end, falling to Baylor in the finals of the NCAA tournament. Suggs was the engine that fueled that amazing run, and his high-level processing ability, athleticism, and knack for making winning plays has everyone excited for what he could become. On defense, Suggs should shine, which is something that Raptors management and coaching love from prospects. His height at 6'4" should make him a natural match with Fred VanVleet in the backcourt, and he's a bulldog on that end, much like Lowry. Suggs combines great athleticism and lateral foot speed with a tenacious motor and ability to read plays before they happen, allowing him to pick off errant passes, dig in on ball handlers to force turnovers, and play solid help defense within a scheme. Most rookies struggle finding their way defensively, but I think that Suggs will make an impact on that end from day one, which should get him into Nick Nurse's good books, and more importantly, get him the playing time that he probably needs to develop. On offense, Suggs is all about penetration, driving the ball in transition and in the pick and roll, and then using his great vision to find teammates or finish at the basket. That's something that the Raptors desperately needed last season when they were one of the worst teams at attempting shots near the basket. One of his noted weaknesses has been his shooting, but it isn't even that bad. He's a 34% three-point shooter on 3.5 attempts per game last season, which is acceptable, but perhaps not exactly what you would hope for from a lead guard. On the plus side, shooting is one of the skills that tends to improve in the NBA, and if he can get more comfortable with his handle and creating space, he could be a good shooter someday. Maybe even someday soon. The things that Suggs needs to get better at are the technical skills: ball handling, shooting, and shot creation. Suggs turned the ball over in college at a high rate, which was due to having a loose handle for a lead guard. While these are definitely concerns, it's not like he's miles behind in those areas, he just needs to tighten things up. Outside of those things, Suggs has everything else you want in spades: toughness, athleticism, size, defensive ability, high basketball IQ, leadership, and a motor that never stops. In terms of those qualities, Suggs has more than probably any other player in the draft, including Cade Cunningham. In terms of fit, I think that Suggs fits well on the Raptors. The Raptors could use another ball handler, especially if Lowry is leaving. And in terms of cultural fit, Suggs would be a match made in heaven. The Raptors are filled with self-starting competitors who don't need to be reminded to practice hard or compete. Suggs is a guy who embodies that try-hard element, that competitive fire that has made the Raptors successful over the past decade. Welcome to Toronto, Mr. Suggs. If you're not a fan of this pick, it sucks to be you.
Boo! You suck!
In terms of the likelihood that Suggs will be a Raptor, I think the odds are pretty high. I think Suggs will be the guy who falls to number 4 in the draft, and I think the Raptors will select him if he's there. I predict that there's a 40 to 50% chance that Jalen Suggs will end up a Raptor after all things are said and done. Scottie Barnes. With the 4th overall pick, the Raptors have selected Scottie Barnes from Florida State University. Barnes' name has been linked with the Raptors at number 4 for a little while now, and the interesting thing about it is that it means that the Raptors did not select one of Suggs, Green, or Mobley at this pick. This draft has been billed as having a top 4 for a while now, and outside of Cade Cunningham at number 1, Evan Mobley, Jalen Suggs, and Jalen Green have been exchanging places from 2 to 4 consistently since it became apparent that Mobley was not a lock at number 2. In a draft episode I did a few months ago, my guest, Pro Scout Henry Ward, was extremely high on Scottie Barnes, ranking him as one of the top prospects in the entire draft over guys like Jalen Green and Johnathan Kuminga. Henry's boldness in singling out Scottie Barnes as a top prospect was questioned at the time, with many commenters on that video reacting with confusion and criticism. As we've gotten closer to the draft, it appears that the consensus is starting to sway in Mr. Ward's favor, as many of the top draft sites and scouts have included Scottie Barnes' name in the discussion as a potential top 4 pick. In fact, much of the insider coverage leading up to the draft has been focused on the rumor that links Toronto with Barnes, citing the team's fascination with his potential as a big with high IQ and ball handling skills. And who could blame them? After watching these playoffs and the dominant performance put on by Giannis Antetokounmpo, any prospect that could give you even a taste of that sort of ability should have teams salivating. I obviously don't think it's likely that Barnes becomes Giannis or anything like that, but a large, athletic guy who can handle the basketball should excite people who understand what the new NBA is all about. Barnes is a 20-year-old 6'8" power forward with a 7'2" wingspan, and on top of that, he's extremely athletic. He was able to show off his excellent physical tools at last month's NBA Draft Combine, where he finished with the second fastest shuttle time and the third best standing vertical leap. But the most intriguing characteristic about him is his ability to handle the ball and distribute. Barnes recorded 4.2 assists per game in his only season in college, and his strong handle and high processing ability for a big indicates that he has potential to be a game-changing prospect at the next level. In reality, Barnes shouldn't be that surprising, because it matches Toronto's MO of valuing strong defenders as well as their interest in long forwards with guard skills. The draft selections of Pascal Siakam, Bruno Caboclo, and Masai's dogged pursuit of Giannis both during the draft and afterwards shows that they value a lot of what Scottie Barnes projects to bring to the table. In terms of current roster fit, that's where things get a bit muddier. Barnes is a big guy, but not sized like a traditional center. His potential skill set is similar to Pascal Siakam's, and he isn't a strong shooter, meaning he wouldn't open up the floor for other players. Defensively, it could definitely work. As I spoke about in the Ben Simmons episode, the Raptors could run a front court of Barnes, Siakam, and OG, who are all big, strong, athletic players. While none of them are true centers, they could combine to create a front court that does all the work of a center by committee. While this pick is sure to flummox many longtime Raptors fans, I'm sure Scottie will become a fan favorite by the time he's reached his prime. In terms of probability, I do believe Scottie Barnes has a good chance to be picked by the Raptors at number 4. But come July 29th, my money is still on the Raptors choosing a name from the consensus top 4 prospects. I also think it's more likely that Barnes is a Raptor July 29th than either Mobley or Green, so I peg the chances at around 20%. Johnathan Kuminga. The Raptors have confused everyone, employed one hell of a smokescreen, and decided to draft the Congo native Johnathan Kuminga, either at their pick or they traded back a few. Masai Ujiri has long been a vocal proponent of African basketball talent, claiming that there are dozens of gems waiting to be plucked, polished, and groomed into the next Joel Embiid, Pascal Siakam, or Serge Ibaka by intelligent basketball general managers. Kuminga isn't exactly toiling away in obscurity, however, as he has been one of the most highly billed prospects in this year's draft for many, many months. Kuminga offers a lot of very raw physical tools that point toward a high ceiling, like his 7-foot wingspan, his height at 6'7", and his fluid guard-like movement and athleticism. Kuminga is also one of the youngest players in this year's draft. He hasn't even turned 19 as of the recording of this video. He also isn't all potential, no skill, as he managed to average almost 16 points per game in the G League this season, albeit on rather poor shooting percentages of 50% true shooting and 25% from 3. Kuminga is not being evaluated as a finished product, however. The idea behind him as a prospect is that he will develop the skills he currently lacks, and when combined with his nascent speed, size, and athleticism, will blossom into a star NBA player. With that lofty upside comes a large bust potential. Many players who have had Kuminga's tantalizing physical package, young age, and seemingly unrealized potential never get there from a skill perspective, and many end up as either defensive role players or simply wash out of the league altogether. That said, the Raptors have a renowned development system, a great coaching staff, a strong G League team, and the patience and confidence needed to take a project player and turn him into a big-time NBA hooper, as they have with Siakam, OG, Fred VanVleet, Norman Powell, and many others. If there's any organization where Kuminga could blossom into a star and reach his ceiling, it would be with the Raptors. In terms of fit, I would assume that the Raptors would either bring Kuminga off the bench or develop him in the G League. He's still a raw player, and unlike other teams where sending their first-round pick to the G League would be a mark of shame, on the Raptors, a stint or even a season in the G League is almost like a rite of passage for the players that wear the red, black, and white. I think after a bit of seasoning, Kuminga could become a big-time NBA player. In terms of probability, I don't think that the Raptors are likely to take Kuminga, as I think they would like to go with a more sure bet at the number 4 pick. There's the possibility that the Raptors trade back in the draft if they like him as a prospect and can get some extra assets for their troubles. Currently, I'd say there's about a 5% or less chance that Kuminga ends up a Raptor. The Raptors traded back in the draft. Whoa! Raptors management are one of the cagiest in the business, and their scouting department is impressive at finding players that are undervalued by other teams. Trading down is obviously a combination of being unimpressed with the player available at number 4 and really liking a guy that was still on the board later on in the draft. Because there are dozens of prospects that this could potentially be, I'm not going to go through every player and give you a breakdown on them. But one player I would keep an eye on is Josh Giddey. Prior to the draft lottery and the Raptors' surprise jump into the top 4, there was a lot of speculation linking Australia's Josh Giddey and the Raptors. The Raptors were actively scouting the 6'8 Australian, and many rumors were floating around that they might be interested in drafting him. Giddey has a lot in common with this season's Rookie of the Year LaMelo Ball. Both played in Australia's competitive National Basketball League. Both are forward-sized guards with excellent ball handling and passing ability, and both have similar flaws, being defensive commitment, poor efficiency from the field, and inconsistent shooting. Giddey is a very intriguing prospect though, as his feel for the game and ability to work in the pick and roll make his offensive upside very high. Individually, I don't think it's likely that Giddey, Kuminga, or any other player available will be a Raptor next season, but if the Raptors do make a draft pick, I think there's a 10% chance that they don't end up taking Suggs, Green, Mobley, Cade, or Barnes with their pick. And if that happens, it's likely that they moved back in order to receive value for a pick swap. I think that the chance they move back in the draft is around 10%. The Raptors traded out of the draft. Holy crap! Masai is not a patient guy. Or maybe he is? In any case, I doubt Masai wants to wait years and years to finally get the Raptors competing again, and that's why he decided to trade the uncertainty of a number 4 pick, the time required to develop that talent, and all the trials and tribulations associated with bringing a young player along, and shipped it out in favor of an established NBA player. The core of Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and maybe even Kyle Lowry are ready to compete now. Why waste time fooling around with potential when there's championships to compete for? Player X is certainly someone who could help the Raptors go for it right now. People overvalue prospects anyway. There's not much to say here, although the rumors that are flying around have the Raptors using the number 4 pick to trade for Damian Lillard, Ben Simmons, Bradley Beal, etc. This is quite typical in draft season. Picks are rumored to be traded for every player that are considered to be on the market. I would be happy with some trades and upset with others. Taken as a whole, I think there's actually a decent chance the Raptors could trade out of the draft. Let's put it between 5 to 10%. And that encapsulates all of the options that are within the realm of possibility during the draft. I'm sure that nothing will happen between then and now that will make me look like a complete buffoon. If you watch this chronologically, thank you for taking your time to listen to all of that. If you skip to the section that actually happened in the draft because you're watching from the future, congrats! How are things? Are you happy with what the Raptors decided to do? If you're watching this video pre-draft, post in the comments letting me know what you think will happen, what you hope happens, and then come back once the pick has been made and let everyone know what you think of the final outcome. If you haven't already, follow me on Twitter at Raps Report for more Raptors and NBA content. And as always, thanks for watching Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.